Sky Bet League One has kicked off this weekend with a lot of shocks and spills from all teams across the league. It's going to be really interesting to take a look into the weekend so far. So make sure you do check your timestamps down in the description. Whichever matches you want to look at, the timestamps will be located in the description. So make sure you hit that subscribe button while you're down there, turn on the notification bell, go and check out your favourite teams, then listen to everything else that you want to know within League One so far. But should we get straight into the first fixture, we're going to look into Crawley Town versus Blackpool. Now, I said in my pre-season predictions and pre-season preview that I thought Crawley Town would struggle and Blackpool needed to find some creativity, and we saw that today with Crawley Town unfortunately for Blackpool, Crawley Town put in a really good performance. Russian Hepburn Murphy stepping up in the 16th minute to take Crawley Town into the lead with a really nice finish early on in the game. Junior Quintana with a really nice goal about 10 minutes before half time. It was a really nice finish, looped over the goalkeeper from the left hand side. I do think it took a massive deflection though, but we won't take it away from him. It was a really good start for Crawley Town, picking up a 2-1 win versus Blackpool. Obviously, Blackpool will be a bit disappointed. Fletcher picking up their goal in the 74th minute. They were unable to bring it back within this game. Now, if we do go ahead and take a look at like the match momentum charts and things like that, you can see that throughout the game, Blackpool were probably the more dominant side. However, Crawley Town were able to keep hold of the ball more with 53% possession. But if you look in that expected goals column and you look at the shots, the big chances and things like that, Crawley Town 0.42 to 1.4 of Blackpool, 18 shots to 10 in Blackpool's favour, 4 big chances to 2 in Blackpool's favour. Again, it's 100% a performance which on another day Blackpool would have come away clean victors in this one, but that is something which Blackpool need to look into within their future games. Now, if we do go and look at both the lineups, we see that Blackpool lined up with a 4-4-2 and Crawley Town in a 3-4-3. In my opinion, that's what I'd said it is anyway. There's some really good players on the pitch for both sides. Obviously, I mentioned Hepburn Murphy in my preview and I said that he really needs to prove himself as a senior player, and coming into League One, scoring on debut is an absolutely brilliant way to do that. Now, if you look at left wing back, they've got Scott Malone, a brilliant player in years gone by. Obviously spent last year at Gillingham. If you then go and look over at the Blackpool side, you've got Norburn and Carey in the middle, you've got Hamilton and Evans on either side. For me, they do have a fairly good squad, and I think they were really unlucky in this game. Now, as you can see, Evans takes away man of the match across both teams, which I think shows that he put in a really good performance. But you cannot discredit the performance of Crawley Town to come away with a 2-1 win at Blackpool, a team who were playoff challengers last season. Now, if we do look a little bit deeper into the stats, you'll see that Blackpool were the better team, but there's obviously a lot of caveats to that. Now, they were better for all the expected goals things in open play. It was 1.17 to 0.41. From set plays, 0.23 to 0.1. Now, if you look at the shots, they had 4 shots blocked, 1 shot hit the woodwork, but of their 18 shots, only 4 of them were on target, and that is a problem which is going to need to be sorted by Neil Critchley heading into future games. And it's not one which Blackpool will want to continue over the course of this season. Now, can Crawley Town keep up performances like this and picking up wins? It is certainly not sustainable, but it is definitely a good way to win games, not being at your best and not necessarily dominating the game, but coming away with 3 points. Now, to end off, I think obviously Blackpool will get better as the season goes on. You'll probably see some results down the right hand side, but we'll go through all those fixtures as we get through this video. So if this was one that you wanted to watch, brilliant. If you want to go and check out another one, check the timestamps in the description. Now, Exeter City pulled off what I would call the biggest shock of the start of the season, or at least one of the biggest, as they come away 1-0 winners versus Rotherham United with a goal from Watts after 71 minutes. Rotherham United obviously now managed by Steve Evans, Exeter City managed by Gary Caldwell. Now, if we do look at obviously the momentum chart, as you can expect, Rotherham were the better side. that is to be anticipated, but they had less of the ball. But it also is a key thing to note that despite Steve Evans' percentage-ile style of play, where it's get the ball into the right areas, create the right chances, he was unable to create more XG. He was unable to take more shots and create more big chances, and that is a performance which Rotherham United fans will be hoping will change heading into future weeks. Obviously, as you can see there, just some basic statistics: 59% to 41 for ball possession, 1.44 XG to 0.99, 15 shots to 13 with 2 big chances either way. Now, if we look at the lineups, both sides lining up in that similar 3-4-3 formation. I think if you look at both sides, they both have some incredible talent in there. You look at the likes of Sweeney, obviously you look at the forward line with Cole. I think they have some really good players there at Exeter City. You've obviously got Harper as well on that left hand side, but if you then come over to the Rotherham United team, you've got Hugill, you've got Clark Harris, you've got Rafferty, Raggett, Humphreys. There's some really good players in that Rotherham United side, and this certainly won't be a result which they want to carry on and take into the next game. Now, if we do look into the statistics of the game, I've already mentioned the shots, but if we go on to shots on target, it's 7 shots on target for Exeter to 2 for Rotherham. 2 big chances each, 2 big chances missed for Rotherham. As you can imagine, less passes than the opposition, and it's certainly something which Steve Evans will be looking to rectify heading into their future games. The only stat which they better Exeter City in on XG is for set plays. It certainly feels similar to the Paul Warne style of play, and you'll know me as a Derby County fan. I know that Paul Warne style of play all too well, and it isn't necessarily very pretty. Now, if we go to shots off target, 8 to 7 of the 13 shots. Only 2 shots on target, though, with 3 shots being blocked. 9 in the box, 4 outside. 10 in the box for Exeter with 5 outside. Now, I think Steve Evans won't sort of take this as, season over, things like that, and that's what people need to realise. Rotherham United will come back from this. They will be much better heading into their next games. You obviously look at the players that they've got available to them. You look at obviously the starting lineup, and then you go down to the bench and they bring on the likes of Sam Nombi, they bring on Joe Powell. You also look at the players that they've not used in Reece James and Alex McDonald, 2 really good players. So for me, they're certainly not going to be worrying at this point in the season. Give it a few more games and maybe they might be worrying, but Steve Evans will find a way to make it work. But Gary Caldwell again getting Exeter City, that 3 points, which is absolutely vital. And I think obviously you look at the Exeter City side and you think, well, that's not as good as this Rotherham side, but it shows that when you work together as a team and you've got that work rate, you've got a desire and you know what you want to do, that you're going to create chances. And they took one, and it was the most important one of the game, and it won it them in the end. And a brilliant result for Exeter City. Now we go on to Stevenage, who picked up a 1-0 win versus Shrewsbury Town. Alex Ravel getting on to a winning start as Stevenage manager, while his counterpart Steve Evans, who left for Rotherham at the back end of last season, loses on the opening day. Now, I said from the start that I think Shrewsbury Town will be in for a bit of a struggle this season, and obviously this 58th minute winner from List is certainly not one which the Shrewsbury fans will want to be looking at. But even if you look at the momentum chart, you look at just those basic stats, you can see that this game was never really a contest. 52% possession to 48% from Stevenage to Shrewsbury, 2.37 XG to 0.35, 14 total shots to 4 big chances to just 1. Now, if we do look at the lineups of both sides, and something I mentioned this in my preview video was about Harvey White getting a bit more of a possessional role this season, and I think that's something that we're going to see. Obviously starting today and picking up man of the match as per FootMob's ratings. He looks to have had an absolute brilliant game. You look at the likes of Piergiani and Sweeney putting in some really good performances. You've got Thompson in the middle of the park as well. Obviously Kemp and List obviously doing the most important things. But it's one of them for me where I think this Stevenage side, they do have some good players. I do think they're going to struggle sort of later down the line. But I think if Alex Ravel can get them off to a really, really good start, I think there's no reason why they couldn't see themselves battling for that top half again. Similar to last season, although I know last season they was in the playoff hunt for a while. But I think they put in a fairly good performance. Now, you look at this Shrewsbury side, and obviously they've had a lot of changes over this off-season. You look at the likes of Shipley, Bloxham, Rossiter, all these players, and Benning on the left-hand side, not quite putting in the performance necessary today, and ultimately that's one of the reasons why they left with no points at the end of this game. Now, if you look at the bench, obviously bringing on Biggins, George Lloyd wasn't able to swing the tide for them. You obviously look at the players that they can bring on at Stevenage with Nathan Thompson, Ben Thompson, some really good players, and I think Stevenage have done an excellent job to come away with 3 points here. Now, you obviously look at the statistics of the game. 4 shots on target from 14 from Stevenage isn't something which they'll want to keep up. They'll certainly want to up that number, but 4 big chances, 4 missed for Stevenage as well, so this could have been a much less tight affair if they'd have just finished their chances. But it's a typical League One game. If you look at the accurate passes, 165 accurate passes to 153. Now, if you do look at my Championship stuff as well, we'll probably go through games where there'll be teams that have more passes than this entire game completed. So it's going to be interesting to see how League One obviously goes this season. They've certainly done a good job to start off with. Have Stevenage, if you look, they top all the XG stats and by a country mile in a lot of them as well. They've done a really good performance today, Alex Ravel's side, so it's going to be really interesting to see how that one develops over the course of the season. They've done really well in today's game. Obviously, let me know your thoughts down in the comments, Stevenage fans, Shrewsbury fans. Do you think it is going to get better as Shrewsbury? Because there's obviously a long way to go for you if you want to make sure that you're not in a relegation scrap. Now, it was an interesting one for Wrexham as they get themselves into League One for this upcoming season. They found themselves coming away with a 3-2 victory from their home stadium versus Wycombe Wanderers. Now, I thought this one would be a much tighter game. I'm not surprised, though, that Wrexham have the ability to come away with a win. Now, they scored a really nice goal with Jack Marriott, probably one which will be up for goal of the season within Wrexham, if not for the league at the end of the season. It was a really nice finish as he chested it down and volleyed it into that far corner to make it 2-0 after just 30 minutes. Now, Wycombe Wanderers did fight their way back into the game, making it 3-1 after 58 minutes, but unfortunately Stephen Fletcher put them 3-1 up after 83 before Sam Vokes netted the consolation goal in the 89th, and Wycombe Wanderers were unable to come back and take a draw. Now, if we do look at the match momentum, if we look at all of it, I think it's a game where it shows that it certainly was a tight affair. The XG is quite tight, possession is quite tight, similar number of shots and chances, and for me, I think that's going to be a common theme this season as we watch Wrexham. So if we go through these basic stats, 45% to 55, 1.14 XG to 1.84, 13 total shots to 19 with 1 big chance either way. Now, if we look at this lineup, now I'm just going to take a quick look at the Wrexham lineup because I think it is like a ridiculous team, right? You've got Okonkwo in goal, who personally I think he was a goalkeeper that I probably would have taken at Derby. You've got James McLean on that left hand side. You've got Dobson. I think he was at Charlton last season, a brilliant player at this level. Jack Marriott, who, if you feed him the chances, another brilliant player at this level. Now, if we just look at the bench, because I think you have to look at the bench, Steve Fletcher, excellent player. George Evans, another brilliant player. And you even look at the players they didn't lose in Dan Scar, Callum Burton, really good players in this Wrexham side. I do think it is ridiculous, some of the players they've got, and it is going to be an interesting one to see how the course of this season goes. Now, you look at the Wycombe side, and it isn't a bad side. Obviously, they've had a lot of change over the course of the last 12 months. Obviously, I think new ownership came in towards the back end of last season, and they've not quite filled out their squad yet. Kone picking up a goal with a Lehigh assist. Obviously, Sam Vokes coming on and scoring as well. So they're certainly in a position where they are going to pick up points this season. They're probably going to finish mid-table. When you look at some of the players they've got, like McCleary, Scowen, Backinson, they've got some really, really good players in there. So it's going to be interesting to see how that one develops over the course of the season. Now, if we go and look at the stats in a bit more detail, 19 to 13 shots, as I mentioned earlier, but 6 on target for Wrexham compared to 4 for Wycombe. No big chances missed for Wrexham, whereas there was 1 for Wycombe Wanderers. Another game with low pass accuracy and low numbers of passes completed. But it's just one of those for me where that's what happens in League One. If you look at all the XG stuff, Wycombe better from set plays, but open play, Wrexham with a better side, and that's something which I think we're going to see a common theme of with Wycombe this season. It's certainly their style of play, and I think it's an excellent result for Wrexham and Phil Parkinson to come away with 3 points on the opening day. I'm sure Jack Marriott will be looking quickly towards the next game to see if he can continue his scoring form. He's had some purple patches in his career. Is it time for another one where he helps Wrexham secure not only safety but potentially maybe even a playoff push for Wrexham this season? Obviously, only one game gone. Maybe don't want to get too ahead of themselves yet, but I think there's certainly a possibility with the squad they have available to them that they could be pushing the upper echelons of the League One table. Now, the next game we go on to is a game with two sides who I think are certainly going to finish much higher than they did last season, and Charlton Athletic have started with a bang. An 81st minute winner from Jones to take them 3 points back to Charlton. Wigan Athletic, obviously disappointing to lose, but it's one of those games where Wigan are going to be really, really disappointed. They're going to be really disappointed to come away with nothing. 65% possession to 35% possession, 1.05 XG to 0.46, 13 shots to 4 from Wigan Athletic. It certainly was not their day in front of goal. Now, if we look at the two lineups, I think both sides have some really, really good players. Now, obviously, you can't mention this Wigan Athletic side without Asgard, without obviously Sessegnon and Hugh Gill, some really, really important players who are going to have massive seasons in my opinion. Now, you also look at this Charlton side, and it really has developed over the course of the last 6 months since Nathan Jones took charge. Connor Coventry, Doherty, Ghassan Ahadmi, some really, really good players now in that side, and an 8.3 rating for the centre-back Jones, who's put in an absolutely massive performance today to help secure this victory. Now, it wasn't a good performance in all when you look at Charlton, when you look at the numbers for Charlton, but the important thing is the scoreline. They came away with that 1-0 win, and that is something which is the massive thing in League One. It's the reason why Paul Warne is labelled the Pep Guardiola of League One, because he is absolutely unbelievable at percentage plays, and that's something which Nathan Jones has done today. 4 shots, 3 on target, 1 goal, compared to 13 shots, 1 on target, no goals for Wigan. Now, obviously, Wigan dominated the ball with 65% possession and 480 accurate passes, more than double that of Charlton. But it was Charlton who came away with the 3 points. You look through the XG, and don't get me wrong, as I said about Crawley Town, being in this position is not something which is going to be consistent. You're not going to consistently pick up results if you're getting battered on XG, if you're giving up 13, 14 shots a game. But the big thing with this one is there was only 1 shot on target from those 13 shots, and that's the big discussion. Now, there is 8 blocked shots in there, which has to be discussed. It shows defensive stability. It shows they're working for the shirt, and they don't want to give away anything in front of goal. And that's something which a Paul Warne side in Derby County did last season, and it's something which, if Nathan Jones is following that motto this season, it's going to be one real interesting season for Charlton, and they will certainly be up there. Now, if you look at the benches, obviously Calvin Ramsey, Charlie Hughes, some impressive players who didn't actually play much today, but would probably be starters on a normal day. Obviously, Charlie Hughes is subject to interest from elsewhere. Calvin Ramsey, obviously, new in on loan, so that's going to be a long one. You look at the bench for Nathan Jones, obviously Luke Berry coming in, a player who he knows well, Tanai Watson, Aneke, like some really, really good players at this level. So it is going to be really interesting to see how it goes. Obviously, Thierry Small, a brilliant player last season for Charlton. Is he going to get a chance this year? It's going to be really interesting to see how that one does go. If you have not done so already, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below or in this top corner. Stay tuned for all of my latest Derby County and EFL Championship and League One videos, which are going to be heading your way. If you've reached this point in the video without being able to skip through to the game you want, make sure you check the timestamps in the description for all of my game week previews. All the timestamps for game by game will be in the description, so make sure you do go and check that out, and I'll catch you in the next part of this video. Now, this is a real interesting one as Barnsley fall to defeat versus Mansfield Town on the opening day. Mansfield took a 2-0 lead early on after just 18 minutes through Quinn and Gregory. Connell picked up the goal for Barnsley not long before half-time after a deflected effort found at the back of the Mansfield net. Now, this one's really interesting for me because we all know the struggles Barnsley faced towards the back end of last season, and a lot of people do hold the opinion that you can't talk about the season before when you're heading into a new season, but for me it just shows a continuation of their slump. Now, obviously they're under new management in Darryl Clarke, but they've not really made many movements this season, and if we do look at obviously the data behind the game, obviously they do look like they were certainly in the ascendancy throughout periods of the game, but they didn't really create much better chances with just 1.29 xG to 1.07 versus Mansfield, with 17 shots to 11 and just one big chance to 0. Now, if we look at the lineups, you look at the two sides, and that, like, in my complete opinion, if you was to put these two sides on paper, you'd probably say Barnsley are going to win that game, and it's going to be quite comfortable with the likes of Sam Cosgrove, Phillips in the middle of the park, Connell, Waters, really good players. But then you have to look at the experience of Akins in that Mansfield team, Lee Gregory, an incredible player, Kyler Dunn as well, another really good player, and Louis Reed. You look at the defence as well with Aidan Flint and Deji Oshalaja, some really good players for that Mansfield side as well. Now, obviously, if you look at the benches of the two sides, Barnsley bring on Conor Horahan, Aidan Marsh, Jonathan Russell, Kyron Lofthouse, and some really good players there as well. And the level of the bench for Mansfield just isn't quite the same. Now, obviously, there is a long way to go in this season, and I certainly think that Barnsley won't be getting stressed anytime soon. And you look at sort of like the underlying data, and they controlled the ball really with 303 accurate passes to 225, but they matched with shots on target. They missed their only big chance of the game. And if you look at the expected goals, and yes, they were better, and it's certainly a performance where both sides had their opportunities, and the big thing was who was going to take them, and Mansfield did that early doors, putting themselves 2-0 up, and it was just one of them games for me where Barnsley, although they created opportunities, wasn't necessarily the opportunities you want. Now, they did have 12 shots inside the box, 5 outside, compared to 6 and 5 for Mansfield. And obviously, if you look at the shot charts just above me, on the left-hand side is Barnsley's shot map. On the right-hand side is Mansfield. Obviously, Mansfield have more shots in the right area. Not Mansfield, Barnsley have more shots in the right areas. But it's just one of those things for me where you look at the numbers and you think this game was really tight. It could have gone either way. And I think the big thing is Mansfield started sharp. They started strong. They picked up their 2 goals early, and they were able to sort of hang on to that. They didn't really need to push for more. Now, obviously, the Connell goal after 32 minutes sort of changed the thinking a bit. But if you do obviously split it up into first and second half, you can see what I mean with it sort of becoming a more defensive attempt from Mansfield Town, compared to, if you look at the first half, that's where the majority of their shots come from. It was more of an even game in that first half, so it is really interesting to see that when you split it up into first and second half. I think they put in a really good performance, did Mansfield Town. Nigel Clough will be absolutely buzzing to take 3 points back to Mansfield. Barnsley and Darryl Clarke will be disappointed, but it will certainly develop over the course of this season. Now we get on to an interesting one, and I say it's interesting because Stockport put 2 past Cambridge United as they went on to a 2-0 win. Louis Barry scored a really nice goal in this one as Wootton picked up the second. Now, this was a game for me where I think Stockport really showed what they're going to be capable of in League One this season. I think I do think I've put them in the relegation zone for the predictions, but I think after a performance like this against a team who are potentially going to be in and around that battle with them, I think it's a conversation that really has to be had, that this team, this Stockport team, might be a little bit higher up than I first anticipated. Now, obviously, Cambridge had a little bit more of the ball, but not really to a massive extent. But Stockport were able to create the better chances. 1.41 XG to 0.66, 22 total shots to 11, double the shot tally of Cambridge, with 3 big chances to 0. Now, if we look at the lineups of this side, I think this Stockport side have some really, really good players. You look at Diamond, you look at Lewis Bate, you look at Louis Barry and Wharton up front, you look at Mingy on the left, and obviously you cannot ignore a dying goal, really, really good goalkeeper. Now, you look at that Cambridge United side, and obviously Lavery had some really good times at Blackpool, but ultimately is not that striker. You've got Corey Smith in midfield with Kachunga and Gibbons. Now, I think Corey Smith's a really, really good player, and I think it showed by his rating here from FootMob. But it's one of those for me where I think Cambridge are lacking just a little bit of quality, and you obviously look at who they bring off the bench with Digby, Richards, Barnett, Morrison, and trying to find a way. And you look at the bench of this Stockport side, they've got Sam Hughes, Ben Hinchcliffe, they've got some good players on that bench. Yes, I know Hinchcliffe is a goalkeeper, but you look at the quality on their bench and I think it's really, really good. Now, if we do go and look at the stats in a bit more depth, obviously 48% possession, 1.41 XG, 22 total shots, 6 on target, 3 big chances, 2 missed, compared to 52% possession, 0.66 XG, 11 shots, 2 on target, 0 big chances. Now, obviously, if you go down, Stockport dominated this game in every category apart from blocked shots, which ultimately is a good thing that they didn't have the most blocked shots. But it's really, really interesting to me to see a team like Stockport come up from League Two and sort of instantly compete. Now, if we do go back to last season, and Cambridge United put up one of the best performances against Derby that I saw, especially that one at the back end of the season where Derby County won 1-0. I think Cambridge were unlucky not to come away from that with at least a point, because they were really, really good that day. Maybe Gary Monk will turn it around, maybe he won't, but it's going to be a really interesting one to see this season with Cambridge and Stockport. Now, one which has shocked me a little bit is this Huddersfield Town result versus Peterborough United. Now, obviously Peterborough have lost some massive, massive players this season, with the likes of Ronnie Edwards, Harrison Burrows, Epsom, Mason Clark, all moving on to pastures new, and that's not everybody who has moved on. And they just couldn't quite find their rhythm in this one versus Huddersfield Town, who scored 2 goals in the first half and called it a day, because Evans scored a really nice goal to start off with. I think it took a big deflection, if I remember rightly. Wiles also picking up a goal just before half-time. Now, it was quite an even game if you look at these basic statistics, apart from when it comes to the quality of chances. 54% to 46%, 0.41 to 1.53 XG, 8 shots to 17. And I think Huddersfield Town may be a problem this season, and maybe some people have underrated them. Now, you look at this team that Darren Ferguson put out: Jed Steer, Sparks at left back, Poku's in there, Collins and Randall are involved, Jade Jones, Con Clark are all involved. Now, you look at the defensive pairing, it's not quite Edwards and Knight like last season, and that's something which Darren Ferguson has got to sort out over the course of the next few months. Now, obviously, you look at this Huddersfield side, and I think it is ridiculous. You look at Karoma up front with Evans and Miller either side. You look at Wiles, Sorensen, Hogg in the middle of the park. You obviously then look at Heilich, you look at Lees, Spencer. All these players are certainly top-end League One, if not bottom-end Championship players. And that's something which you have to really discuss when you're talking about these players that have come down. And they've also got Herbie Kane coming off the bench, who was a fantastic League One player last season. You also look at Danny Ward. You've got some really, really good players coming off the bench, whereas you look at that bench for Peterborough, Malik Mothersill, maybe in the future he could be really good, but right now not quite. Look at David Ajiboye, could be good in the future, but right now he's not quite there, and it's certainly a work in progress for this Peterborough United side. And Huddersfield seem to have hit the ground running, and I think we can certainly say that after this performance. And 17 shots, 5 on target to 8 shots in 2 is massive. I think it speaks volumes to what Peterborough have lost this off-season in the likes of Mason Clark, because they've lost so much quality. They've been battered in every single department by Huddersfield Town. It's going to be interesting to see how it goes. Now, obviously, I'm not able to watch every single game, so if you're listening to this and you think, oh, what's he on about? We didn't get battered. We were really, really unlucky. But you look at the underlying data and you think, well, Huddersfield created the better chances. They had more shots. They had more shots on goal. They had more shots off goal. They had more blocked shots. Like, it's just one of those for me where I just don't think the underlying data can look this bad if you were unlucky. So it's one of those for me. Obviously, let me know your thoughts down in the comments. I know I have a few Posh fans which follow me from last season. I do think it's going to be a really, really interesting one to see how the Posh absolutely develop over the course of the rest of the transfer window and this season, because they've lost some big, big names this off-season. And obviously, starting off with a 2-0 defeat is not what they'd want, but they obviously had bad spells last season and got into the playoffs, so let's see what happens with them for the rest of the season. Next up, we have Ian Everett's Bolton Wanderers starting off with victory versus Leyton Orient. Dion Charles and Victor Adebayo picking up the goals in the 8th and 75th minute respectively. Kelman picking up the goal for Leyton Orient just before half-time to really make it a big game for both sides. Now, Leyton Orient are one of them sides who I think could either be mid-table or they could really fall down the order this season. I think they had a really, really good year last year, and it's just about, can they improve, can they develop, can they take it to that next level? And obviously with the addition of some of the teams that we've had this year, it's certainly not going to be easy. Now, if you look at obviously the momentum graph, you look at the basic statistics, it was a very, very close game. Leyton Orient even having more opportunities to shoot on goal. Obviously, they didn't quite have the same number of big chances, 2-1 in Bolton's favour. And XG-wise, it isn't that far off with 0.88 to 1.11. And possession-wise, is really, really close. Now, the lineups of the two sides is going to be really interesting, because I do think this Bolton side is one of the best sides in the league. You obviously look at the likes of Sheenan, you look at Thomason, you look at Arfield, Charles Collins, some really, really good players. Now, a lot of people probably go, why haven't you mentioned Santos? I'm not a massive fan of Santos. I don't think he's at the level that some people think he is. I think Baxter is a brilliant goalkeeper. And then you look at this team that Leyton Orient have. Jordan Brown in midfield is a really, really impressive midfielder who has developed strength upon strength after leaving Derby County during their administration season. Look at Kellerman in the middle, a really, really good player who really needs to find his feet now at a specific level where he can actually go out and play consistent games. And he's picked up a goal today, which is certainly a big thing for him. Obviously, Sean Clare playing for Leyton Orient today. He's a player who left Wigan with high regard, really, and he put in a fairly decent shift today. Maybe not to the level they'd expected, but they were quite a ways away from Bolton last season, and that's something which does obviously need to be discussed, because when you're looking at teams, there's for some teams there's big gaps to make up, and whether that be some teams are getting worse and some teams are getting better, that's sort of the discussion you have to have. But certainly an interesting one. Dion Charles, Aaron Collins playing an absolutely wonderful game for Bolton today. Now, you look at the opportunities and both teams have some really, really good ones. More shots on target for Leyton Orient, but it's Bolton Wanderers who are clinical. Now, that is something which you couldn't say about Bolton last season. And is it something they're going to be able to carry on? Because if you go back towards the back end of last season, there was periods where they was having 8, 9, 10 shots on target in a game and scoring once, and then drawing the game. And it's things like that which Bolton Wanderers have certainly got to develop this season, and obviously it looks like they have so far. But the majority of their XG is coming from set plays with 0.64 compared to the 0.27 in set plays for Leyton Orient, 0.61 to 0.47 from open play. Now, I think Bolton Wanderers have got a good shot this season at getting promoted, whether that be automatic or through the playoffs. And it's going to be really interesting to see how their season obviously does develop. Obviously, they've got a really good squad. They've got some really, really good players. They still need some additions, and I know some Bolton Wanderers fans will sort of say they're probably not as strong as they were last year, but I think they've made some really good additions so far already. There's a lot more to come as well, and I think by the time they end this window, I think they'll be in a really, really good place. Now, Burton Albion may have made all those changes off the pitch, but it just wasn't enough to pick up a good result on the opening day at the Pirelli Stadium, which has had loads of renovations done inside and out. Now, despite taking the lead, going 2-1 behind, and then picking it up again to get level at the break, they did fall to defeat. It was a late defeat versus Lincoln City, a 3-2 defeat at that. Certainly one which the Burton Albion fans at the Pirelli Stadium may be disappointed with, but I'd certainly think it's a step in the right direction. Obviously, a lot of debutants for them in this game, and it is certainly a turn compared to the style of play that they were used to last season, dominating the ball with 66% possession to Lincoln City's 34, 1.73 xG to 1.2, 11 total shots to 7, 5 big chances to 2. But one thing that tells me is that this Burton Albion side are not clinical, and that's something which is going to have to be addressed over the course of the season. Now, you look at the team which started this game, you've got Dylan Williams playing left centre half, you've got Watt and Gilligan in the middle, some really, really good players, you've got Danny Orsi up front, you've got Bowden playing, who is from, I think he's signed from Oxford United, but you look at that Lincoln City side, and yes, they have lost some players, but they've still got some quality in there with the likes of House, Erharden in midfield. I definitely butchered that name every time I say it. They've obviously got Bayliss as well in there. They've got some really, really good players, and obviously you can't not mention the centre half who picked up 2 today in O'Connor. What a brilliant performance from him. Now, if we do go into the statistics for this game, you'll see that Burton Albion had some really good opportunities. 11 shots, 5 on target, compared to the 7 shots and 3 on target from Lincoln. They probably go home thinking, we've stolen it here. Now, Lincoln did this a lot last season, and I've said a few times already in this video today about a few teams that you can't live on the edge like this all season. It catches up with you. But Lincoln City did it really, really well to the back end of last season, where they'd give up opportunity after opportunity, and it would open the door for them to go and steal a win or steal a point in a game that they didn't deserve one. And I feel like that could have been the situation that's happened today. If you're a Brewers fan, if you're an Oxford fan, let me know down in the comment section, because you look at the statistics, you look at the open play XG, that 0.81 lower than Burton Albion. Obviously from set plays it is much higher, and that probably accounts for why their centre half has scored twice. And it's one of those for me where 4 shots in the box, 3 shots outside, compared to 10 shots in the box and 1 outside. It's a really, really interesting thing to look at for Burton Albion, because I certainly think they're going to be a problem this season, and I think they've got a lot of young players. You look at the likes of Dylan Williams, who I think is going to have a fantastic season at League One level. It's going to be interesting to see how that develops as the season goes on. Will they be able to battle for a playoff place? I think I've put them in 7th or 6th for my season predictions. It's going to be interesting to see how that one goes. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Now, Bristol Rovers absolutely picked a brilliant win up right at the end of the game today with a 92nd minute winner versus Northampton Town. And I think it sort of goes with the theme of what I was expecting from these two sides this year. It's going to be a lot of tight games, a lot of late results, or absolute thrashings, in my opinion, because I think Bristol Rovers have sort of got a lot to do off the pitch as well as on it. And obviously you look at these statistics and you think, well, why weren't Bristol Rovers winning earlier in the game? 12 shots, 1.11 xG, 0.28 xG for Northampton with 6 shots, 2 big chances for the Bristol Rovers side. Now, you obviously look at the lineups, and I think Bristol Rovers have some really, really good players. You obviously look on the right-hand side, you've got Luke Thomas. You go through the middle, you've got Isaac Hutchinson, 2 ex-Derby County Academy graduates, so you know they're going to be good with the ball at their feet. And you look at the front two with Sinclair and Omashare, Promise, we're going to call him Promise. 2 really, really good players in my opinion, and as this season progresses, this team at Bristol Rovers is going to get more and more intertwined. And you look, Isaac Hutchinson putting in a really good performance already today, but then you look at this Northampton side, and realistically, I think they're missing a lot of quality. Now, Northampton fans, let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. Obviously, a lot can change over the course of a transfer window, but if you stretch sort of back a few weeks to last season, they obviously had a really good season. They sort of went a bit under the radar, in my opinion, finishing in that mid-table area. And if they're going to do that against this season, they've got to beat teams like Bristol Rovers, because they're going to be the teams in and around them. Now, obviously, John Brady has done a massive job with them so far, and it's going to be interesting to see how that develops. But today certainly wasn't one of them games where he picks up a brilliant result. As you can see, 12 shots to 6, 5 on target to 1. It just was not good enough, and they were battered in every single department when it comes to the attacking metrics, and that's just really disappointing for Northampton Town, because they'll want much, much more. Now, obviously, to lose in the 92nd minute is very, very disappointing, but ultimately it could have probably been more, and it could have probably been earlier. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments. And we head ourselves into the final game of this video, and it's Birmingham City versus Reading. Finishes 1-1 in the end, and I think it's a little bit controversial, the penalty which Birmingham City were given for a handball late on in the game. Certainly one which I think was questionable. Now, I haven't seen a replay. I saw it in real time. I haven't seen a replay. It's going to be interesting to see that again for me. Obviously, let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Reading fans, Birmingham fans, did you feel hard done to? Did you feel lucky? Let me know down in the comments. Now, Reading took the lead with a really nice goal after 42 minutes, and I'm not going to say that I felt like Reading were the better side, but Birmingham City certainly weren't as threatening and impactful as I anticipated they would be this season. Now, obviously, you look at the dominance of the ball, 74% to 26%. It reminds me so much of Derby County under Liam Rosenior, and it's a game where they probably should have won. Now, 1.63 XG to 0.54, 13 shots to 8, one big chance to none. Now, the big chance is obviously going to be the penalty. Now, you look at this team that Birmingham City have put out. You've got Christian Bielik, who at one point was statistically the best midfielder in the Championship for Derby County. Like, they've got Sanderson, they've got Pike in the middle, I think that's how you say his name, Miyoshi. You've got Sariki Dembele on the left, Alfie May through the middle, Mark Leonard. Some really, really interesting talent, and that's not even looking at their bench. We don't even need to look at their bench, because it is just an embarrassment of riches that they have at Birmingham City. Now, they won't be happy. They booed them off at half-time. When I was listening to watching the match on Sky Sports, you could hear it at half-time. Now, if that was a Sky track, I'd love you to let me know down in the comments, Birmingham City fans, because I felt like that just wasn't great for first game of the season. Now, don't go and look at my match review for Blackburn Rovers, because I'm a bit of a hypocrite, because certainly not impressed with that performance from Derby County. But obviously we look at this Reading side, Lewis Wing, Harvey Nibbs, Sam Smith, really, really good performances. Obviously, I'm not going to say the striker's name who scored, because I do not want to butcher it, but what a performance he put on. Really, really good performance at 21 years of age. And obviously, you look at the players they bring off the bench, it's a completely different level off the bench of Reading compared to the bench of Birmingham City, and that's something which is going to be looked at over the course of this season for Birmingham, because they have an embarrassment of riches in their squad. Now, if we look at the full data, the manager at Birmingham is not going to be impressed to lose this one. 13 shots to 8, only one more shot on target though, despite having 5 more shots, and only one big chance, which is going to be the penalty. Let's not kid ourselves. Now, they dominated the ball, they dominated possession, they dominated XG, they dominated like the shot charts and things like that, and I think Birmingham City did put in a fairly decent performance, but ultimately fairly decent isn't good enough at League One, and it's not about being good, it's not about being the best team in the division, it's about those percentage plays and making sure you pick up the points. Obviously, they've got to pick up 2 points a game to get promoted. Derby County proved that last season, Portsmouth as well. If you get 2 points a game, you're up. And that's what Birmingham City need to do. So they need to win their next game now. And it's obviously going to be interesting to see how that does I will be previewing every single game this season, every single game week. So do make sure you hit that subscribe button and stay tuned by turning on that notification bell. And if you hit the like button, it'll help my videos pop up in your recommended section. So it's going to be interesting watching Birmingham and even Reading this season, because I think Reading were really unlucky last year. Obviously, the points deductions and all their off-field drama, which I believe is still going on. But it's dangerous. It's dangerous for Reading, because I think they're a fairly decent side, and if they weren't in the trouble they're in off the pitch, I do think they could cause a real problem in League One. Now, it's similar to Wigan. Now, I think they're in more of a stable position now under new ownership and things like that. I think they've got less to worry about off the pitch, and now it's just about them developing a squad. But Birmingham City cannot complain about any of that, because they have some of the richest owners in the league who have funded the squad massively this season. And it's going to be interesting to see how it progresses. The 1-1 draw won't be what they wanted, but it's a good start for Alfie May to pick up a goal early, controversial or not. Certainly a good way to start the season. And yeah, let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Now, it certainly wasn't the performance for every team that they wanted. I'm talking about the likes of Rotherham and Birmingham, who certainly won't have wanted to start the season by dropping points. But you look at some other teams with the likes of Stockport, Mansfield, picking up massive wins to start their campaign. It's going to be really interesting to see how this one does progress. If you want to stick along for the ride with me, I have completely no bias within this League One campaign. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, and hit the like button. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments, and make sure you are subscribed. Stay tuned for all of my next videos. Make sure to go and find me on TikTok, pictured here, and Twitter, pictured here. These are the places where I'll keep you all up to date with all my upcoming videos and my thoughts and feelings around the Formula 1 and football weekend.